Hello. Welcome to this lecture. How do I make it go full screen? Who am I talking to would also be a question here. Oh, yeah. Hello and welcome to this little slideshow that I thought I would do because I am getting so many questions about maintenance calories. And if you want to maintain your body composition, then having a good estimation of how many calories you need to eat to maintain your current position is a good thing. And I think with Christmas coming up, this is something a lot of people are thinking about. Maybe they are in a long-term fat loss goal, or they have a long-term fat loss goal. But over Christmas, they kind of want to just maintain where they're at. So I thought I would do this to help out. So maintenance calories are your calorie needs. What they are is influenced by various factors, which we're going to talk about today. I'm also in the way of this part of the slide. But basically all it says is they're influenced by various factors and they are constantly changing. Whereas what they are not is a fixed number that can be easily defined. And this is kind of the frustration with people, even my own clients, asking, what are my maintenance calories? They are not a fixed number. I can't give you a fixed number for them because they are always fluctuating. So maintenance calories, also known as your total daily energy expenditure. And put quite simply, these are the amount of calories that a person expends carrying out physical functions, both consciously and subconsciously. And we'll go through what the components of your total daily energy expenditure are. But in essence, it's the calories that you burn during the day. So these are the components of total daily energy expenditure. And this is, obviously it's a pie chart for those of you who don't know. And it's sort of what's used as like what the average person does. Now, obviously these things will move. So for example, if you were an elite athlete and you exercise for hours and hours a day, then this exercise activity thermogenesis component is going to be higher. Equally, if you're not a high level athlete, but you train some days and you don't train on other days, for example, on your rest day, this would be lower. So again, this is fluid as well. It's energy balance. But you can see that by far the biggest proportion is your basal metabolic rate. You then have non-exercise activity thermogenesis and the thermic effect of food. So factors that fluctuate daily that influence our calorie needs are your thermic effect of food, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and exercise activity thermogenesis. And things that impact these are, for thermic effect of food, your macronutrient breakdown. So protein has a higher thermic effect than fats or carbs. So if you ate a higher protein diet that day, then your thermic effect of food would be higher. For NEAT, it can be things that you're not really thinking about. So even if it was that you did the same step count every day, depending on the terrain, which I've spelt wrong, and the gradient, then then the amount of calories you burnt doing those steps would be different. Or even if you think like, oh, I was carrying a backpack for half the day doing those steps with 5 kilograms of food in or something. Other things that can impact the weather. So when it's very cold, we expend more energy maintaining our core body temperature. And stress. So when we're highly stressed, we tend to burn more energy as well. And then these are, oh no, I'm in a very annoying place on the screen. And these are the factors that impact our basal metabolic rate. So you have age, sex, body size, body composition, ethnicity, hormonal status, your genetic makeup, physical fitness. You might be thinking, how does physical fitness impact? And actually, the fitter you are, the more efficient you are, so the less calories you burn. I know, not fair. Dieting history, so metabolic adaptations. So the real point I want to make here is that these factors will fluctuate daily. So we don't have a huge control over these, and it's completely normal for these to fluctuate daily. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you need to consider all of these factors in a very analytical way. I'm just pointing out so that you can see that it's not as simple as just giving you a number, that number will fluctuate, and it will fluctuate for various reasons. I mean, these are just some that came off the top of my head. Like, there are far more reasons that things will fluctuate. And on a longer term basis, so for example, you can't just say, these are my maintenance calories forevermore. Other things will also impact your basal metabolic rate. So some of these include your age. Typically, your basal metabolic rate, as you age, will reduce due to loss of lean body mass, and the associated the metabolic cost of lean body mass. Your gender and the bulk of difference for gender as well, or sex. Actually, I had to change that because gender is a choice, or you can choose your gender, but you can't choose your sex. So the sex that you were born with, your biological sex, is about 5 to 10% lower in females than it is in males of the same height and weight. And the difference is mostly made up of your body composition, so changes in your body composition. But if we looked at even just the fact that men tend to be bigger individuals, and then that comes on to the next point, which is body size, body composition, your ethnicity, hormonal status, your genetics, physical fitness. And you might be thinking, how would physical fitness impact? But actually, the fitter you are, effectively, the more efficient you are. And that means that you burn less calories for the same given exercise, unfortunately, or given movement in general. And then finally, your dieting history. So if you've lost a significant amount of weight in the past, your basal metabolic rate at your new weight is going to be lower than someone who was at that same weight but didn't diet down to that weight. And that's due to metabolic adaptations and effectively, again, making you more efficient, which always sounds like a good thing, but actually for fat loss, not ideal, unfortunately. Hopefully you have made it this far and you now understand that maintenance calories, well, you understand the process of what makes up maintenance calories a little bit more clearly. So a little bit of practical application, and please bear in mind that it is extremely hard to give generic advice given that I don't know your starting point. So you need to sort of well, basically, if you are a client, then you can just message me. If you're not a client, then you can sign up and become a client if you want one-to-one personal advice. But here goes some sort of generic practical advice anyway. So if you're dieting, I would add about 10% to your current calories and monitor your weight. Monitor the weight trend, not any fluctuations, which are inevitable, over about a 2-week period. It is likely that you will still be in a deficit, probably at about, if you've added 10% on, but you'll be in a smaller one. So then after 2 weeks, you'd monitor, you see if I'm still losing weight, okay, I'm going to add on another 10%, or I'm going to add on 5% potentially. And then effectively what you're doing is adding on small amounts of calories and hoping to keep everything else the same so that you will eventually plateau and that you'll be maintaining your weight. But again, if you then, I don't know, change jobs from working in an office to working outside in manual labor, then your maintenance calories would increase. So things like your activity levels will massively impact your maintenance calories. And to give that some context, I go for 10% as most people diet at around a 20% deficit. This is a huge assumption as well. So you can see how this is making many, many assumptions and is actually quite a hard thing to give generic advice on. And then also remember that your initial total daily energy expenditure when you started dieting, oh my God. When you started dieting, jeez, God, that got deep pretty quick. Your initial total daily energy expenditure when you started dieting will now be less purely because you've become a smaller person. So if you've lost 10 kilograms of body mass, then you are now a smaller person and you have 10 less kilograms of body mass to maintain. And the reason that I like to add calories slowly is that from experience working with many people, it can be a bit of a head fuck increasing your calorie intake because you're worried that you're going to put on the weight that you've worked so hard to lose back on, which is why we do it quite slowly, mainly for adherence purposes, and so we don't overshoot things. So things to note again, do remember that food weighs something. So if you start eating more food, then the food volume that is inside you will increase. Now that's not body fat, that's just an increased amount of weight due to food volume. So don't be put off if the scales goes up slightly. That doesn't mean that you're over maintenance calories, that just means that there's some food volume. And a really important point, calorie targets are always fluid. They will always change. They're there to be adapted. So your start point doesn't hugely matter. It's an educated guess. And do you know what? This is a huge generalization, but most women who weigh anywhere between about 50, I don't know, like 60 kilograms and 80 kilograms and are moderately active will do well starting their diet on around 1600 calories. Like most women. Let's assume that they have no other complications and they're moderately active. That's a good starting point for most women. And then from there, you monitor and adapt. And an understanding of maintenance calories or your total daily energy expenditure is important no matter what your goal. So if we come on to just a basic look at energy balance, the amount of energy, fat that you store long term is dictated by the amount of energy you consume and the amount of energy you expend over time. So if we look at this line here as your maintenance, then if you eat less than this over time, you will lose body fat. If you eat more than this over time, you will gain body fat. You'll also probably lose a little bit of lean body mass, and you'll probably gain a little bit of lean body mass. And you can reduce the amount of lean body mass you lose by making sure you're resistance training, and you can increase the proportion of weight that you gain coming from lean body mass or muscle if you resistance train. So that's an important aspect as well. So you can see that the starting point to any goal, whether that be fat loss, maintenance, or fat gain, is kind of trying to figure out your total daily energy expenditure. So this line here, how many calories you need just to maintain where you're at. Having a rough idea of that then allows you to drop calories to create a deficit or increase calories to create a surplus. I hope this has been useful.